Hey, I'm going to talk a little bit about counter rotation to provide balance in a character's pose. I see a lot of times very stiff torsos in CG. I call it the tyranny of the correct. Characters' rigs usually come in like this, and we have a tendency to believe that this right here, the horizontal and the vertical, are very correct. And what I see is a lot of stiffness in this area of a character's of their body. And if you look at people, our torsos are very flexible. It's almost, with the spine, we're almost snake-like in a lot of ways, and within reason. But what I see a lot of times, let's say this is a head, upper spine, middle spine, and pelvis. A lot of times, what I'll see people do if they want the character to lean forward. Let me just kind of go to a front view here, or side view, whatever. If they want the character to lean forward and look down, a lot of times they will take each of these things and they will kind of rotate forward like this. And that kind of has a problem because it gets the character off the base of their feet, and it makes it feel like they're going to fall over. Okay, because so much of this weight is too far forward of the base. All right, and so it feels like they're going to fall over. And the same is true when they go back as well. A lot of times people will just rotate the character back like this to look up. And again, that's a problem because they're so far off of their base. It feels like they're going to fall over backwards. So a lot of times what I'll see people do in order to avoid this is they keep things stiff. And they do most of the work with the head. And as a result, they don't really have very strong they just don't have very strong posing, and the line of action goes it's too vertical. There's not a lot of, it's just too stiff. They rely too much on head angles to get the job done. And the same is true, when they're leaning back. A lot of times they will just keep things feeling stiffer, and they localize the translations or the rotations to just a few controllers. Most of the time on rigs, that creates very uncomfortable pinching and stretching, and it feels weird because we just can't do that with our bodies, where we just localize rotation to just a small area. It's distributed across the entire spine to varying degrees of intensity. So what do you do to avoid this stiff or this off-balance feeling, which I see in a lot of animation? People, like my students, I see it quite a bit. Sometimes when I have the rare chance to look at somebody's animation, I'll even see it on the occasional film. Definitely see it in TV work sometimes. So the way to avoid this is to use the principle of counter rotation. Take one part back and the other part forward, and what it does is it maintains balance. Let's have a look at how that works. To look down forward, or we want the character to look down, rotate the hips back. You may be thinking, geez, Keith, why would you rotate the hips back? Ah, grasshopper, you will see. And then you rotate that forward. And you use this principle of counter rotation. Now what we have is we have the character on their base. They're still able to look forward, but there's balance inside of their pose. You still have a strong line of action. The cool thing about it is it also gives more weight, okay? Because it implies that this guy needs to keep on top of his base in order to look down. When you lean forward like that, it just takes and steals all the weight out of a scene. And also when you make things stiff like this, there's no weight to it. It doesn't feel like there's any settling of these various forms of weight. But here we have that going on versus that. They're still looking in the same place. If you see right here, this guy leaning forward is kind of looking down in the same area, but by doing it this way, it's just a little bit easier to work with. Okay, and then leaning back's the same sort of deal, where we can lean the character forward, back a little bit, counter rotate, and then look up. The same deal, and it works out well. So use counter rotation to give balance and weight to your character poses. It gets rid of stiffness and keeps things flowing much better, and you'll see that the results are much more, I don't know, they just have more weight to them. And hopefully that helps you. And if it didn't help you, well then I guess you just wasted 5 minutes of your life.